In this video we're going to look at the distribution of noun phrases in sentences. And to start, just to recap, remember that constituents are the syntactic structural units in a sentence. Yeah? And although we're focusing on phrases at the moment, you need to remember that word categories are constituents as well as phrases. Word categories form lexical constituents. Yeah? So we've got two types, lexical constituents and phrasal constituents. Now, we've looked at some tests for working out phrasal constituents, but in general we can use the distribution facts about words and phrases to work out what we're dealing with, because constituents have a predictable distribution within a sentence, and that means that it's predictable where a constituent occurs in relation to other constituents. Yeah? We've already seen that in sentences we always have a noun phrase preceding a verb phrase. Yeah? That's our general rule about sentences. Yeah? So a sentence consists of a noun phrase, there may be an auxiliary and a verb phrase, and of course we've already seen that that noun phrase, the noun phrase in that rule, is the subject of the sentence. Yeah, so that's a very important place where noun phrases can occur. They can occur as the subject of the sentence, and then they're always, the noun phrase to the left of the verb phrase in a sentence. So here's a sentence: the baby slept, and the subject noun phrase is the baby, and the verb phrase here is slept. Now, in addition to subjects, noun phrases can occur as direct objects, and that means that normally what that means is that they occur next to the verb. Yeah, so if you've got a situation here, you see the man, he's eating the egg. Yeah, so you've got the verb eat, that's the head of the verb phrase, and then next to the verb you've got the noun phrase, the egg. And because the egg is next to the verb in this verb phrase, it is the direct object. In terms of meaning, you can say, well, the man here, he's the agent, he's the one doing the eating, and the egg is what we call the patient, the thing undergoing the action expresses by eating. So, the egg is the thing that gets eaten. Now, we've got a small group of verbs that behave slightly differently. They're called dative verbs, and dative verbs are verbs that have a direct object but also something called an indirect object. Now, give is an example of a dative verb, and we can see that give occurs with two different structures. Yeah, so you can say Fred Flintstone gave the flowers to Wilma. So there you've got gave, the verb, and then next to it is a noun phrase, the flowers, and then a prepositional phrase to Wilma. Now here, of course, the flowers is the direct object, because it's, if you think in terms of meaning, it's they're the thing undergoing the event. Fred Flintstone's giving the flowers. To Wilma is here the recipient. Yeah. Okay, now we can say this, we can express this in a slightly different way. We can say Fred gave Wilma the flowers. Now what you see then is we're losing the two, yeah, and we have two noun phrases next to each other. Gave, Wilma is one noun phrase, and the flowers is the other. Now in this case, Wilma is still the recipient, and the flowers are still the patient. I mean, they're still the entity undergoing the action. And because of this, we say that Wilma, the first noun phrase in this structure, the verb with the two noun phrases, the first noun phrase is the indirect object, the second noun phrase is the direct object. So that's the second place where we can find noun phrases. It's these two next to each other. As an indirect object and a direct object. Now we only find this with dative verbs, so verbs like give. Yeah, another one would be send. You can send someone flowers. You can throw someone flowers. You can hand someone flowers. Yeah, but there's always a recipient, which is the indirect object, and patient, the thing undergoing the action. Okay. Now, a further place where we find noun phrases is as object of a preposition. Yeah, and that means that you've got a prepositional phrase where you have a preposition which is a head, and it's followed. It's next to it. It's got a noun phrase. Yeah, so inside the prepositional phrase there's a preposition and a noun phrase, and that noun phrase then is the object of the preposition. So, for example, here you've got from the postman. From being the preposition, and the postman is the object of the preposition. Okay, let's try a few. If you take the sentence, the man argued with the doorman about his ticket. What's the doorman? Is it the subject, direct object, indirect object, or object of a preposition? Well, remember the subject test, yeah? Who or what argue with the doorman about his ticket? The answer is the man. Yeah, so the doorman can't be the subject, yeah, because it doesn't answer that who or what plus verb plus rest of sentence question. So in order to work out what it is, you have to look at where it occurs. So what's the word before the doorman? And we see that that's with, and with is a preposition. So remember, what we have then looks like a preposition with a noun phrase. Now we can test that. We can actually move with the doorman around in the sentence. So we can say the man argued about his ticket with the doorman. So you can see that with the doorman goes together, and that means that you've got a preposition with a noun phrase. Together it forms a prepositional phrase, and so the doorman must be the object of the preposition. Here's another one. John handed his boss a letter of resignation. Yeah, what is it? Of course, again, it can't be a subject because you have who or what handed his boss a letter of resignation, and the answer is John, so that's a subject. So what have we got then next to his boss? Well, we've got to the left, we've got the verb handed. His boss, of course, you can replace that with a pronoun, so that's a noun phrase. John handed him. And then we've got a letter of resignation. Now, a letter of resignation is another noun phrase. You can say John handed his boss it, yeah, or John handed it to his boss. So we've got two noun phrases to each other, next to each other. Now, hand is like give. Yeah, it involves a recipient and a thing undergoing the action. And here, of course, his boss is the recipient. So we've got John handed two noun phrases, and that means that the first noun phrase is the indirect object and the second is the direct object. So his boss here is an indirect object. Okay, well, let's try one more question. He told a story about his travels around Japan. Now here, I'm telling you there is a direct object, so let's think about what it is. Yeah. So here you've got to do a test. You know, you can think, you can try and do a replacing with a pronoun. So he told it, he told what did he tell? And the answer is a story about his travels around Japan. There it is. Okay.